just used to having to redline all the time to be heard.
Is that right?
No, I'm just kidding.
Is this the origin story of you as a DJ? Nobody ever listens to me.
I know. I take if you're not redlining, you're not headlining very seriously.
Yeah. That is not a joke to me. Oh, man. But yeah, thank you for taking the time to do this, man. I know it sounds like you're doing a million different things, both in and out of music right now.
Yeah, man. That's to say the least.
So wait, do you have another kid yet?
Not yet. Well, we have a 4-year-old son.
Right.
And then, yeah, we have another kid on the way. And we both thought that he would be born already. His due date was like 3 days ago.
Okay.
Like when I set this up with you, I was like, I don't know. It might not happen. We'll see.
Yeah. No, and I got that sense, and it made total sense. I was actually impressed you were down to schedule it at all. I feel like if it were me, I'd be like, nah, man, talk to me in 6 months.
Yeah, for sure. If it was the first kid, it's so funny. Like with your first kid, I feel like everyone's always careful, and they're like, all right, we got to make sure we're around and all that. And then with the second kid, we're just, my wife and I are just like, let's get as much shit done as we possibly can.
Yeah. Cause now you know, right? You know what it's going to be like.
Yeah, for sure. Like we're about to get thrown into crazy sleep patterns again. And
right. I mean, it's just crazy to me, man, not to just jump into it, but, just thinking about, because I was thinking about the fact that you're having another kid, and for some reason I knew you already had a kid, and then it seems like you're doing so much right now. Like you put the album out last year, and I feel like for the last several years you've had like a really consistent, pretty active music release schedule. You're doing a bunch of shows, and big shows, you're co-headlining Red Rocks, all this kind of stuff. It sounds like a lot. Does it feel like a lot?
Yeah, sometimes it does. Really, the only way that it's the only thing that's caught up with me that I'm now realizing is that has become a thing is sleep deprivation.
Yeah,
and like years of it piled up.
Well, because it's easier to do when you're younger too, right?
Yeah. And you don't necessarily really feel the effects of it until it just, compiles over like decade or more.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing too. You've been doing this for a long time. It's not like any of this is new to you at this point.
Yeah. I mean, the really intense touring is, that's mainly in the last like 5 years, I would say.
Yeah.
But before that, it was like I was still I guess, man, if I think about that, then it was like working a day job full time and touring on the weekends. So yeah, I guess it always just constant destroying my body.
Yeah, but I agree with you, man, because it does. You don't notice it at first. Like it really does take years to kind of notice that just like, just like everything about me is a little slowed down now, or like I just can't take as much of anything anymore, Yeah.
Yeah, that's real. I mean, especially, I don't know. I'm like, I'm 35 now, so I've started to. This is the year where I've felt the sleep thing. Yeah. Where I'm like, I definitely need 8 hours of sleep to function.
Do you get it? Are you good about taking care of yourself?
When I'm home, I get it. Well, actually, when I'm home, I usually get it. I get between 6 and 8 hours. And when I'm on the road, I mean, it's tricky. It's been tricky because my wife's job is a little bit hectic. She's a birth doula.
Oh, wow.
So she helps moms have babies, and she's on call all the time.
Man, yeah. I have a friend whose wife is a midwife, and yeah, it's crazy hours and kind of unpredictable.
Yeah. It's crazy. So that combined with me being on the road is just, I mean, up until we just moved here to Florida like 3 months ago, but up until that, she was on call and I was touring, and it was total madness. I was like, something's got to give here.
Well, yeah. And you got a kid between it. I didn't realize you had moved to Florida either. What part of Florida?
St. Augustine.
Where is that?
It is just south of Jacksonville.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Like a half hour south of Jacksonville.
Okay. Yeah. I like Jacksonville, man. That's a nice little area.
Yeah. St. Augustine's sick. I kind of, I equate it to, if you've ever been to Boulder.
Yeah.
You've been to Boulder, Colorado. It's like Boulder. It's like what Boulder is to Denver.
Because you were West Coast for like most of your life, right?
Well, I mean, I lived in Boulder for 15 years and grew up in Sacramento. So
yeah, man, Florida's that's a different vibe.
Yeah, it is. I love it though. It's so chill here, and the weather's nice. The people are all nice.
It's beautiful. Was it just time for a change? Was that why you guys made the move?
Yeah, pretty much. Like we've always wanted to live by the ocean. Like I've always wanted that. My wife's always wanted it, and Colorado's cold.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing that I think gets more annoying as you get older too, right? It's like you just don't want to you want to deal with as minimal shit as possible the older you get.
Yeah. Scraping your windshield.
Yeah, all of that. I mean, that's like the stereotype, right? Is that like all old people eventually end up in Florida. But
yeah.
Maybe DJing has just prematurely aged you.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I have a feeling there's going to be an influx of DJs that move to Florida.
Well, I feel like right now, it's funny because you came from Colorado, which is, I feel like a lot of DJs just moved to Colorado from LA in the pandemic. Like it feels like there's almost like a second wave, because Colorado was, whatever, the base capital for so long. I feel like there's almost like a second wave of people going out there now.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. My friend Omar Kumarian, he's moving out there now.
Okay.
He was going to move to LA, but I guess the lease, it's like really hard to rent a place out there or something.
Yeah, I think it's a nightmare. I've never lived in. Did you ever do the LA thing? I never lived in LA.
Oh, I stay as far from LA as I possibly can at all costs. That's not my vibe whatsoever.
Yeah, that's fair, man. I was in San Diego for a long time, which was great because I went up there every week almost, but then I also got to leave every week.
Dude, San Diego is amazing.
Oh, I miss it, man. It's incredible. But yeah, Denver's and Colorado in general, like I know Wookiee moved there, I think. Good Times Ahead, GTA moved there now. I just talked to Blank. I don't know if you know him. He's out there as well too now, I think, with a bunch of people.
Oh, okay.
It's going crazy, man. I don't know. It's just funny the DJ migrations, because I think I'm around the same age as you, and I think you're probably old enough to remember this too, where for a while, like in the mid 2000s to like late 2000s, it was New York. Like everything was happening in New York. And then with like the kind of EDM boom, it all hopped over to LA. And then I feel like Colorado was kind of an offshoot of that. I don't know. What was your path to all that? Were you born in Northern California? Is that what you said?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, actually, I was born in Riverside.
Oh, yeah.
Which is like, Orange County. And then my family moved up to Sacramento. So I lived there until I was 19. And I don't know. I feel like you just want to get out of wherever you grew up.
Yeah, especially if it's Sacramento.
Yeah. So, I mean, I actually like it now when I go back. But yeah, when I was a kid, I was like, get me out of here.
Yeah.
And I moved to Boulder. And I mean, it just Boulder was great. I didn't like what it turned into. Like it kind of turned into Silicon Valley.
Really?
Yeah,
I
like
didn't know
just
that.
all the tech companies moved in and drove all the prices of everything way up. And it used to be, when I moved there, it was kind of like a weird hippie kind of
Yeah.
vibe. And it got a little Silicon Valley type thing going on now.
Yeah, I believe you. I relate to that. I know what you're talking about. It's funny because I feel like the weird hippie vibe, is that your vibe?
Yeah, I like that. I mean, I definitely was into that when I was 19,
Yeah.
which brought me out there.
Well, yeah, no, finish your thought because I want to tack something onto that too.
Oh, okay. Well, I was gonna say, like, when a big thing is when COVID happened. That obviously showed everyone the true colors of wherever they are.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It just I just saw more encounters happen of like people just being kind of nasty to each other, and here in Florida, like everywhere I've been in Florida, everyone's just so chill. It's like everyone's nice to each other. Nobody's all up in each other's business. And it just is, it's just so laid back that, and it's way cheaper.
Yeah. Well, that helps for sure.
Yeah. So all that, everything kind of came together like that. And, the fact that we were having a second kid, we were like, all right, if there's any time that we're going to do it, we have to do it like right now.
Yeah. Well, and especially if your personal life is about to get a lot crazier, maybe it's nice to live in a more laid back spot for that to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, it's funny, man, when you were talking about Boulder and kind of getting commercialized and the tenor of the place changing. You tell me if this is too much of a reach for this connection, but it almost made me think about dance music and your place in it too, because I think there was kind of, for a long time, like what we were talking about, the early days of maybe when you and I got into it, it kind of was that like weird indie, not very commercialized, not very centralized feel to a lot of it, at least to me. Like a lot of it felt very regional. It felt very unprofessional in a fun way.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, I mean, at this point, 2022, what could be more commercialized than EDM?
Dude, I know. It's so crazy. It's wild.
And I wonder, do you think, this is a total shot in the dark, but do you think your career or the path you've followed, did you react similarly? Because I feel like there was a certain point, especially for dubstep, when in the US, like dubstep came to the US and we, kind of did the American thing and beefed it up and turned up the volume a little bit. But then I feel like there was kind of this branching road where part of it just started getting like harder and more aggressive, less groovy, maybe less of like the roots of where dubstep started. And another path, stayed more true to the roots. And I'm not saying one is better than the other, but I don't know. I feel like just the way you've ended up, do you feel any connection to that? Did you see that commercialization happening?
I definitely saw it happen. I mean, I definitely followed that whole timeline that you just said about electronic music, because the thing I've been thinking about this a lot, like what you just said, how it's become commercialized, and like I'm kind of, my friends and I are kind of like reaping the rewards of it being commercialized a little bit.
Oh, me too, man. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, any of us that are doing any of this think about if you were doing this podcast like 10 years ago.
I mean, I would have stopped probably. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I had a few times where I kind of gave up. I was just like, I threw in the towel a few times where I was like, I'm just gonna like focus more on the day job, and like the music thing's it's just not gonna work.
What was the day job, out of curiosity?
I worked at rock climbing gyms.
Oh shit.
For like basically since I was 13 years old.
Really?
Up until 4 I think 4 years ago was probably the last time that I like worked in a gym.
Man, that's just since you were 13. So you were rock
13.
climbing early.
Yep. And I was probably working illegally.
I'm almost guaranteed, right? Like,
yeah. Shady climbing gym owner. It's all good.
Hey,
hopefully they're not listening to this.
No, it happens. I mean, what was at 13 years old? What would you even be doing at the gym?
I learned how to set routes when I was 13.
I don't know exactly what that means.
So the holds. So on the wall, there's holds that you can move around to different spots. Right. There's T-nuts, which are the threads where you can bolt in bolt the holds in and all that. So I would basically strip the wall of all the holds, take all the tape off, and then have a blank canvas to just create a new path.
That's so interesting, because even that, I had no idea, but that's almost like a creative pursuit, right?
It's super creative, actually, and I actually miss doing it because it was such a good outlet that I got, not to toot my own horn, but I got like really good at doing it, and I got good at setting routes setting like easy fun routes that everybody liked because they were just like, nothing too crazy.
Yeah, well, and it makes me think, it makes me think about like painting, or even like a Japanese sand garden or something where you're raking patterns, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's very zen.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And it's funny to think about for something like rock climbing that's such a strenuous activity, that before the strenuous activity, there's like this very calm, sort of visualization stage.
Oh yeah. And it's funny too, because it's like part of my favorite part was watching people get on the routes after and like forcing them to do certain moves.
Oh, man. Well, God, I don't know if I'm reaching too much for these connections today, but that just makes me think about DJing.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. It's
okay, good.
The same thing.
We're on the same page. That's so funny, man. Because sometimes like that, to me, that I think that's why I keep doing it. I was a DJ before I was a producer, and that's what I fell in love with. And for me, it was always about, to me, I could always see the connections between songs or sounds. And it was so easy to me. It was just obvious. It's like, oh, obviously this should be played after this, or these things will connect. And I didn't realize till much later that it wasn't that obvious for everyone else. But then that became that was the most fun part. It was just being like, no, it's like almost like me at the blackboard in class being like, no, see, like this goes to this, goes to this. And you just do it in the context of a DJ set. It's so satisfying. Oh, yeah.
It's very addicting too, like when you get to test out new songs.
Oh, sure.
That feeling of it's like this, the dopamine hits.
Oh man, yeah. And like connecting, there's something too, I talk about this on the podcast all the time, making that connection with a crowd of people, a crowd of strangers, and just all of a sudden you playing the right thing, and then all of you are somehow more deeply connected than you were before, all because you made the choice to play a weird song at that time. It's so interesting to me.
I mean, I think that this might be me reaching a little far.
Let's reach.
But I definitely like to think that we're kind of like, hopefully this doesn't come off as like it's egotistical or anything, but I like to think that we're kind of like shamans that are channeling some like universal messages that are coming through, and we're just like, it's just going through us. And
I like that. I like that a lot. I mean, there's definitely something to that. I think if nothing else, that's maybe what we should be aspiring to do, right?
Yeah.
Because I think anybody who is a DJ who's listening to this, you've probably felt that feeling at least once, where just all of a sudden you sort of unconsciously did the right thing at the right time and the room explodes, or, something changes, everything turns on its head. Like those kind of moments, because you're right, it's not really like you planning it. there's some part of you that's maybe planning it in the background, but when it happens, you really are sort of channeling some kind of energy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Especially those times when, I don't know, those random times in the middle of a set where you pull out a song that you haven't played in years because you're like, oh, they need to hear Freak TC remix right now or something.
Good pull on that. I just pulled that out myself the other day.
Oh, really?
Yeah, randomly in my crates, man.
That was like the most sought after dub plate.
Right, because that was, man, I could talk about that record for a while because it's funny listening back now, you're like, oh, well, this doesn't sound that crazy in today's context. But at the time, I like thinking about records like that, where at the time they sound so crazy or so just there's no precedent for it. And then you come back to it years later and you're just like, oh, just that was the song that came before every other song that would sound like it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny with TC though, because it was like this drum and bass producer that just makes this insane, song that all the people would play in their dubstep sets.
Right. and for him too, I'm a huge TC fan, but for him too, I mean, that must have just been kind of a fun little experiment. It's not like he really switched up the core of what he was doing,
Yeah, for sure.
Which maybe just shows you how good he is to just kind of throw one of those off and then go back to doing what he does.
Man, yeah, that guy is he's like just one of the most prolific producers that's ever lived.
Yeah, and so unique too. I mean, there's kind of nobody really has ever sounded like him, and still to this day, what he does is so I don't know, even his new stuff, like I'm obsessed with some of his newer drum and bass stuff too, because it's just so intense and so crazy. It's like one of those things where, I feel like he makes the kind of music that you have to be careful where you play it in your set, because a lot of tunes you can't play next to his songs.
Oh yeah, because they're just wiling out a little too hard.
Yeah, basically.
Got those wild, yeah. That's funny. I actually feel that way about some of the new Rusko drum and bass stuff.
Yeah,
because they sound so good. I usually just play them with my songs because we kind of have a similar style of mixing our drums and all that. But his drums just like punch you in the face.
Oh yeah. I mean, I remember, I want to talk about you working with him in a second, because I was just listening to the song you guys made together. But even before we get there, I just remember, and I'm sure you do too, when Rusko first came out, nothing sounded like those early tunes. And there's so much older dubstep that I don't think you can get away with playing anymore, just because production values have changed so much. But you can play old Rusko all day and it still hits.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it still stands up.
It's crazy.
Yeah, you can play. I still play Jehovah, the original.
Oh, for sure. The Kid Sister remix he did, I play that all the time.
Yeah,
Woo Boost, obviously.
Yeah, Pronoun. I bet we could just sit here and name every single Rusko song. And
yeah, we basically could do that. I used to. I was Kid Sister's DJ for a couple of years. And,
okay.
So I know that Rusko remix real well, because we would play that every set.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a staple. But yeah, man, what was it like working with him? We're kind of bouncing around, but that must have been kind of a full circle moment for you, because I have to imagine he was an early influence to you too.
Yeah, that was like the full circle moment of music for me. That pretty much.
That was it. You're done.
That was it. Yeah. I man, how did it come about? We actually started another tune a while ago, and just we never finished it. I forget like whose turn it was or whatever, but it just kind of fell off to the side. And he just one day sent me that thing, and he just sent me a whip, and work in progress for those of you that aren't producers listening. He just sent me this thing, and it was like, it reminded me of Do you remember SNES dub?
Oh man, I remember that it exists. I don't really remember what it sounds like anymore.
So it's like it's his really old, some of his first releases were like, regular dub, like not dubstep,
Right.
but just
Like
dub
closer
music.
to dub reggae, yeah.
Yeah, like basically, yeah, dub reggae. And he sent me this idea that was just, it was that. And that's like mostly what I listen to, is that kind of music all the time.
Sure.
So he sent me that and he was like, "Hey, do you want to work on this?" And I was like, "Oh my God, send me the stems right now. I'll bust this out like right now." And yeah, it came together so fast. I think I must have sent him stems back like the next day. And then
it's such a
knocked
fun tune, man. I heard it when it came out, but I hadn't listened in a while. I was just like, man, it's so fun. I don't know. I feel like there's a certain sense of fun or playfulness in a lot of the music you make. Rusko too, and maybe that's part of the connection. But would you agree with that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've always, since I started making like, beats or whatever, way back when, I think I was 15 when I started like producing. My friends my music was just total dog shit for a while.
Sure.
And my friends would be nice to me and they'd be like, "This is cool. It kind of sounds like circus music though." I was like, man, I got to stop making all this circus music.
Well, and it's hard, I think, too, when you're just starting off and you get notes like that. It's hard to really know what to change. Because if you were anything like me, because I kind of got similar notes where people were like, "Man, it's cool, but it's like all over the place and blah, blah, blah." And the way I reacted was, and years and years and years ago when I was first starting off, was to start just trying to sound like other people, which, is not really the thing you want to do.
No, you got to take that. When people say that, I mean, it's the whole like 2020 hindsight thing, but you got to take that as the compliment.
Right. Yeah.
That they're saying that,
yeah.
Which looking back, I'm like, well, there's a reason that Circus Records is called Circus Records. Like somebody else thought this was a good idea to make this too.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, if they were saying carnival or circus or whatever, I mean, in a certain light, like that's iconic in a way. We all know what carnival, you say carnival music, immediately that's something snaps into people's heads, right?
Yeah. 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 Like you're in Brazil on the streets with like thousands of people that are just going nuts.
Yeah, man. So I think you're right. You have to kind of embrace whatever people are saying about you. To a certain extent, where I'm at with it now is like I mostly ignore it, whether it's nice or whether it's, not nice. It's kind of just like I can't listen to either one anymore because I'll get too turned around by it.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think about that? Like, how are you at taking feedback at this point?
So I'm very particular with who I take feedback from. So my close friends, actually, since we were just talking about him, Rusko he's been really cool about like, for a little while, like he just started getting into writing a ton of drum and bass, obviously, because that's all he's been putting out. And I've been writing a bunch of drum and bass too. So, like, I'd say like during the whole summer, we kept sending each other our songs that we were working on and, giving each other critiques on everything. And, he definitely helped me with all the drum and bass that I've written with just little things like, your kick, shorten the transient on the kick or particular things like that.
Yeah. Small tweaks. I feel like UK people, and obviously him especially, kind of have like this sixth sense for drum and bass.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's ingrained in them.
Yeah, it's like stuff that, I mean, I think we are seeing a lot of interest in drum and bass in the States this year, that maybe more than in the last few years. But to me, there's, you hear somebody from the US make it, you hear somebody from the UK, you can immediately tell who is who.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, you can tell when people are just tossing dubstep drums into a 174 grid.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And there's like kind of, it's so many of the dubstep, and I'm not talking shit about anybody, but it is really funny when people come from the dubstep world, and especially the like heavier, more aggressive dubstep side, and just put the same drums in a new pattern. But like, it's still, because to me, so much about drum and bass is kind of the groove and the shuffle and the kind of syncopation of all those little, like the top end stuff. And yeah, I feel like so much of American drum and bass is just the fucking caveman, like kick snare, punch you in the face thing, which for dubstep, I think that works, but for drum and bass, it's a harder sell for me.
Yeah, it's a hard genre to write. It's hard to make it sound good.
That's true too. I mean, yeah, look at, it's all the technical masters who can do it, really.
Yeah, I think that's what I like about writing it so much right now, is that it's the most challenging genre for me to get it to sound like perfect.
Had you written much, because I know you've worked in a lot of different genres over the years. Had you done much with drum and bass before the last year or two?
I've dabbled a little bit, but I was basically one of those people that took the dubstep drums and made them fast.
Yeah. Which there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. I hope it didn't sound like that, but yeah, it's just one of those.
No, that's how you got to do it. Like that's the way to get into it.
Yeah.
And I had enough people, I have a friend, Steve, he goes by DJ Fury. Lives in Denver, throws shows out there.
Yeah. I mean, Fury's a legend out there, right?
Yeah. He's the American Andy C.
Right. Yeah,
that's what we call him. But I remember I used to send him my old drum and bass songs, and that's exactly what he would say. He'd be like, "Oh, it just sounds like fast dubstep." And I'd be like, "All right, I'll work on it some more."
Yeah. And
I think finally I've gotten his seal of approval.
Well, that's good, man. I mean, that's nice. That's another full circle moment, probably, being able to have somebody you started with finally approve. I mean, what was it like? You say you started producing at 15. What even got you into it? Like, what were you listening to? What was the thought to start doing it?
So I was listening to all hip hop, like underground West Coast hip hop, basically. Like Living Legends, Hieroglyphics. I was going to those shows like all the time.
Yeah.
I guess what else was I listening to? Atmosphere.
The backpack, all the backpacker stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I was into that. My friend that got me into all that music, my friend Ryan, shout out Ryan.
Big shout out Ryan.
Big shout out. He gave me, I'm about to get him arrested. FBI is going to look into him right now. He gave me a copy of Fruity Loops 4.
Oh man, it's all over for Ryan.
He's done. So he gave me a copy of Fruity Loops 4 because he was making beats. And I remember he had a friend who was also making beats and like selling them, and they were using SoundClick.
Oh, wow. Do you know? SoundClick was like, for people who don't know, I don't even know the best way to describe it, but that was kind of, was like, I mean, way, way, way before SoundCloud. Kind of, was this SoundClick and MySpace around at the same time?
Yep.
Yeah,
for sure. I think SoundClick may have come a little bit before MySpace, but yeah, they were around at the same time. So yeah, he gave me a copy of Fruity Loops, and we were messing around. He showed me a little bit, but he kind of just gave it to me and was like, check this out. You can like make your own music. And I just completely taught myself, I guess, which was a long journey. I didn't really have any, besides him for a while, I didn't have any mentors that were like teaching me anything. And there was no YouTube.
Right.
Like YouTube didn't exist then. So the internet wasn't. This makes me sound like so old right now.
Oh, dude, I'm right there with you. But this is what we were talking about earlier too. Like there at the start when we were coming up, the whole scene was so much less professional and so much less organized. You know?
Oh yeah, man. I don't know. I feel like in some ways that bred like a lot more unique producers.
Yeah, I agree.
Not to say there aren't unique producers now, but I think it really made you have to like work really hard for it to like get good at it.
Yeah, I think you had to work really hard, and also you had to. The bar for entry was higher too, because now I think it's easy to kind of look at social media and see a bunch of famous rich DJs and be like, oh, cool, I want to be a DJ. Whereas I think when it was a little different when we started, where you couldn't really, it wasn't like a successful job that you could, say like, oh, if I get really good at this, I'll be a millionaire,
Right. Yeah. You're not making, DJs weren't really making money.
Yeah. Like not outside of Tiesto, I don't think anyone was making that kind of money.
Yeah. Well, although the club DJs were.
Sure.
So yeah, at the time, I guess that was where you made the money, was having like weeklies and.
Right. Yeah. There was kind of this hybrid like promoter DJ model where if you had, a successful night every so often, that could kind of be like a cash cow. It was so much more regional too, man. That's the thing. Like, I remember, I don't know if it was the same for you, but yeah, like all I cared about when I started was playing like the big night in Chicago. Like I didn't care. I was not thinking about going on tour. I was not thinking about playing festivals. Like all I wanted to do was just like get a slot at the biggest night in Chicago.
Yeah, for sure. It was kind of the same for me, but it was more like I just hoped that enough people showed up to where they would spend enough money at the bar to where they would keep having me play.
Yeah, right. That too. I mean, I was also, don't get me wrong, I was throwing a weekly in Chicago that lost money for years.
Are you from Chicago then?
No, I moved around a lot. I was born in Minnesota. I grew up there. I lived on the East Coast for a while. Then Chicago was kind of where I started professionally as a DJ. I lived there for a long time, lived in San Diego. Now I'm in Washington, D.C. I've been bouncing around.
Yeah. So are you happy in DC now? Are you settled there?
I'm settled, man. Yeah. I'm very comfortable in DC. I'll put it that way. It doesn't feel like home as much as Chicago did, or maybe even San Diego, but it's a very nice place to be.
Yeah. I love DC.
It's cool.
That's one of my favorite places to play too.
Oh yeah? You do good shows?
Yeah, I mean, I just love the crowd there. It's just, I don't know why, it just sticks out as one of my favorite spots in the whole country.
Yeah, that's cool. I feel like everybody's got a couple of those cities, man, where it's just good every time.
Yeah.
I don't know. Milwaukee was always that for me. Milwaukee, every time I go, it's like the best experience.
Oh yeah, Milwaukee.
Couldn't tell you why, but it's always the best.
Because it's so cold there all the time. Everyone's all cooped up.
I guess that's true, but like, I don't know. I mean, I grew up in Minneapolis and lived in Chicago. Like, they're all cold. And I play great shows in those places too, but something about Milwaukee, it's just another level.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know why that is. I feel like part of it is just you catch the right crowd at the right part of their lives, and then they keep coming back to see you, and you can kind of build that relation, like almost like a personal relationship with a city.
Yeah. That's kind of cool to think of it that way. If you're like a touring musician, to think of like the different types of crowds that there are. Because there's some artists that bring, if an artist is like popping off on TikTok or something, the people that go to that show are probably different than the people that would go to like somebody like me or you that's been doing it for a long time.
Oh, for sure.
Religiously go to like every show.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I think it depends on what else is happening in the market at the time. And, if you're, there can be so many factors into you having a good show, just beyond, obviously, you got to put in the work, you got to put out good music, you got to promote it, all that. But then I think so much of it has to do with also like what's going on in any given city at any time, how busy the club is, how many other shows. I don't know. I think about this kind of stuff all the time because I think it's so easy to have a great show and feel like you're the king of the world, or to have a terrible show and to feel like you're worthless, when so much of it doesn't have anything to do with you.
Yeah, I know. It's hard not to take it personal when it doesn't go your way.
Well, I mean, you said earlier you almost quit a few times, man. What kept you here? What keeps you going?
Man. So there was one time in particular where I was definitely thrown in the towel, and I was offered a job at a climbing gym that I interviewed for it. I don't think I had ever interviewed for a job in my life, because I worked at climbing gyms and just kind of like got in, and figured it out. And it was a job. It totally was like not my kind of thing. It was, I've always been a route setter at the gyms. So it's just been like manual labor, and it's creative.
Right.
So I don't have to talk to anyone except for the people I'm working with, which was super fun because you're just talking shit to each other the whole
it's
time.
Not customer service at all.
Exactly. Yeah. And this was like running a climbing gym. So it was very much like customer service, ins and outs of the climbing gym. And I was like, cool, maybe I should just do this. Music shows aren't going too well. I remember one of the shows that I played during that time when I was like considering just being done. Talk about a night where people don't show up and you don't feel good about yourself. But it was in Minneapolis, and it was the night that Prince died.
Oh, wow.
Like I landed in Minneapolis, and then right after I landed, they'd found Prince.
Oh, man.
And it was pretty amazing to be there. Like it was an incredible night to be in Minneapolis, because they just shut the whole city down and everyone was in the streets.
Of course.
Totally. It was.
Were you playing downtown Minneapolis?
Yeah, I was playing. So Skyway.
Yeah.
There's I think it's downstairs. There's some room. So it's not Skyway, the main room. It's not the loft.
There's not the loft. Room. The third room. I know what you're talking about. It's Barfly. Is that the one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. That's it. So I was playing that, and
So you were a block away. I mean, because First Ave is like a block from there, and that's where I had friends. I was talking to friends in Minneapolis that night, and they they opened First Ave, I think, for like 24 hours and just played Prince music the whole time.
Yep.
Were you there? Did you go over afterwards?
We just walked around. Like we couldn't really like get into any.
Yeah.
Especially into that venue. So it was just total. It was like slammed.
Of course.
There was no way of getting in unless you're trying to chill there for like hours and wait. But yeah, like I played the show and I was like, this is just. I took it as a sign. I was like, this is just a sign. This isn't meant to be. There were like 10 people that showed up to the show and they were stoked. But I was like, I had done so many shows leading up to that I don't know, my career did this weird, like it kind of started going well, and then it kind of slowly like declined. And then when I hit that bottom trough, that was about that time where like I played so many shows on that same run of shows. This is kind of hilarious, but I played a show with Jansen and our friend Tom Shankaran in Fargo, North Dakota. And we didn't get paid for the show, spent a bunch of money to get out there, rented a car. This was right after Minneapolis when that all happened. And that show didn't do too well. The promoter tried to like pay us in Coke. And then
he
was like, if you guys don't want Coke, like I could just try and sell this. Let me try and sell a few bags. And like,
oh my God.
And then at the end of the night, he was like, if you guys want to jump me and like take all my money, you can try, but I don't have any money. And those people are going to jump me as soon as I walk over there.
Jesus, that's the saddest thing I've ever heard.
Dude, it was just sad thing after sad thing. One after another.
Oh,
and I got that offer for the climbing gym job. Didn't really even pay that well. And we would have to have moved to Ogden, Utah.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, you know what? Maybe this is what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
And then the thing that turned it around, which this is a perfect little, another full circle thing, is my friend Lance, who was working at Beta in Denver at the time, which to this day, even though it's not around anymore, or it's something else, that was probably my favorite club.
It's an incredible club.
Just like incredible. And it was like that was like my family for years. And Lance hit me up and he was like, hey, do you want to do direct support for Rusko on this date, 3 months away?
Full circle. Crazy.
Yep. And then, so when he gave me that, my wife, Alyssa, who I had just, I think we were only together for like 5 or 6 months. But we were living together at that point. And she was like, yo, you need to make a Woo Boost remix. Like, you got to do it because you just have to do it. You're playing with Rusko. It'll be perfect. And then I made a Woo Boost remix that ended up doing really well for me because Ganja White Night, those guys were blowing up at the time. I sent them the song. They put it out on their label, like on SoundCloud, and all these things just kind of like bubbled all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Also, out of nowhere, everyone started thinking that like the wonky kind of stuff sounded cool all of a sudden.
Right. Which maybe, I mean, I almost feel like Rusko's rise is part of that too. Like all of a sudden, these sounds were coming in from overseas. And I feel like Rusko in particular was the one who kind of made that cool in America. Well,
he did, but this was like
this later.
This was years after he did that.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, this was, when was this? I think I want to say this was 2016.
Oh yeah, so way later.
Yeah, it was 2016, and I was like, I was totally shocked because I was like, man, I've been making this shit for. I'm like, I've been doing this for a while and nobody really cared about it.
I'm curious though, man, because you said, right before that maybe the career was starting to slow down. What do you attribute that to? Was it just kind of a lack of excitement, a lack of inspiration, either on your part or the crowd's part for what you were making?
I think it was a little, I don't know. I want to say a little bit of both. I was always excited, but I think I spread myself a little too thin. And I got really excited to write a bunch of like trap and twerk kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And from listening to like your stuff back then, any like, GTA.
Oh yeah. Flostradamus, all those guys.
Like I was just super into all that. And it was weird because the people that wanted to hear like the wonky dubstep didn't want to hear that mixed in with it.
Right. Yeah. That's a weird thing too, man, of like, because again, I think to take it back to what we were talking about, making connections between music and taking people on a journey. Because I'm the same as you. I'm like, oh, of course, all of this makes sense together. I love it all together. So everybody else is going to love it all together too. But yeah, it's a hard line to navigate because that is not always true.
Oh yeah. It's easy to mess that one up.
Yeah, man.
So I don't know. I got just really into making all that or attempting to make all that. And Jansen also was really into that at the time. And him and I wrote a ton of music together. And we even started a side project that we put out like a 1-2 song EP and then gave up on it. But it was like, to this day, you know, I still think that music is really good, but I'm like, man, it wasn't the right time, I guess.
Yeah, so much of it is timing, man. That to me, it's like we were talking about when you have a good show in a city. Sometimes it's just the timing of when you're there, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel the same way about releasing music. You could release, you know, something today that years from now people would look back on and say, oh, this at the time, that was the most forward thinking. Look at this. This was the blueprint for what was to come. But at the time, it might not do anything for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Or the opposite. You could release something at the height of whatever, you know, sound or style's popularity, and it could get lost, you know, if there's too much stuff around it that sounds similar. Yeah,
for sure. Well, it was weird because when him and I were writing that stuff, I remember we had, because I was always like chasing the Beatport top 10s of like certain genres.
Sure.
Even though it doesn't equate to ticket sales or anything.
No, but we all got, man. Everyone plays that game in one way or another. Like, you always want to figure out where you stand, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And I remember we had a couple songs. We had one twerk song that we put out that hit number 1 on, I don't even remember what genre it was on Beatport, but so we had that, and I was like, sick. We're good.
Right.
This is going to work. And then that's when I learned that Beatport charts don't equal ticket sales.
No, they certainly do not. I mean, I never knew if this was an old wives' tale or not, but for a while there was that thing going around like, oh, like the number 1 on Beatport, that basically saying that like Beatport sales were dropping so much that even getting a number 1 like wasn't very many sales.
It means that like 12 people bought the song in one day or something.
Yeah. Like, you know, if you're number 1, it's like, like 100 people bought your song or something.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that anyone buys any songs is...
God bless them, man. Yeah. I mean, where do you fall at this point, man? Because I feel like listening to your last couple albums and Depolarize especially, it really did feel like that you were nodding to kind of where you came from. You were nodding to also looking to the future, maybe dabbling with some current sounds. But overall, it seemed like you were striking a balance. I mean, how much of that do you think about these days? Like, do you write in the same way that you always have?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I do. It's slowly morphing, but I mean, a lot of it has to do with my studio, I would say now.
What do you mean?
Because that album, the last 2 years living in Lafayette, Colorado, which is like outside of Boulder, I was renting a studio room that I got from Mr. Bill. He had it all treated and like set up perfect, and it sounded perfect, and I was able to get like pretty good mixes in there.
Right.
And it just made it more fun to write music. And I think I like dove in a little deeper with everything because of that.
Yeah, because then that becomes more fun, right? When you can actually really become that technician when you have the right equipment.
Oh, yeah. It feels like sometimes it feels like you're driving a spaceship and you just, you got it all figured out and everything's just like quick. And
then how does that compare to, say, like where you are right now in terms of your writing process?
So right now I feel like I'm just getting, I mean, I got this room kind of set up. Like I brought all that treatment here. This is just a room in our house now.
Right.
But I finally ordered some like nice monitors. I ordered some Barefoots.
Ooh, nice.
And they're
treating yourself.
They're like, what's that? What was
you're
that?
Treating yourself.
Yep, treating myself. Also, you can finance them, which is kind of nice.
Yeah.
Double treat. But they're like way back ordered right now. So I have the room like kind of set up. I got KRKs, which actually sound pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, I'm so not a snob with any of that stuff, man. I feel like as long as you are comfortable on whatever you have and as long as you know it, to me, it's like you could make good music on anything.
Oh yeah. In the last 6 months, I've written everything on AirPods.
Oh, I love that. I love that,
Yeah.
man. Yeah.
Once I get the studio set up, I think I'm going to start. Once I get it, so I'm going to get those monitors, and then I'm going to have the guy who set up Mr. Bill's studio in Lafayette come here. He's I don't know if this is the right word, acoustician.
Oh yeah, or acoustic engineer or something like that.
Yeah. So that's what he does. He builds, I don't know, he's built like a couple Tipper studios and just, people that make really cool music that I want to sound like.
Right.
And he lives in Orlando, which is like 2 hours south of here. So
oh, nice.
Yeah, he's gonna come up and get all set. And I think once that happens, I'm actually gonna sit down and plan. I've never done this before, but I'm gonna plan a whole album out, decide which songs to make, what kind of vocals to get on the songs.
Interesting.
Start writing it that way.
Like more of a concept in general, or more of just trying to think of like what kind of sounds, what kind of balance of styles? What are we talking about?
Yeah, I guess kind of like an overall concept, but it'll be all the genres that I normally write and maybe one or two other things that I haven't written.
Well, maybe what I should have asked is, what does writing an album look like for you up to this point? How have you written your other albums?
The way that I've done all my albums is I'll write like, I'll pile up like 25 songs, usually 20, 25, 30 songs, and then pick through them and, pick 12 of them to put on an album.
Just see what's cohesive.
Yeah. And then go through those and, balance them out with each other so that they, sound similar. So it's usually like I just write music throughout the year and then I pick a certain time to like get it all together and put it into an album. But yeah, I want to try it a different way this next time. And I recently, actually yesterday, I haven't listened to this in so long, but I listened to Recess, like the whole album.
Oh yeah, sure.
Which is like just a masterpiece, yeah. I think, of that time.
Agree.
Listening to that, I was like, man, I want to do like my own, take on that.
I like that, man. That's is part of the fun of it for you, because you've been doing it a long time and you've put out a lot of albums at this point. Is part of it like that reinvention or trying to figure out things you haven't done yet?
Yes, for sure. Yeah, I guess I like doing things that I suck at. So if I can ever find something that's a challenge and then do it and do it like somewhat decent, then it makes me feel good about myself.
I guess that's that's like a rock climber thing too, right? Is like there's always a harder route. There's always
yeah, for sure. And I don't know, like I've been skateboarding a lot recently and that's been the same kind of thing.
Oh man, yeah. The skateboarding DJ connection is so strong, man. There's like, I've been talking to a lot of people, a lot of skaters who also make dance music. And I was never a skateboarder, but I can totally see the connection because it really is. It's a very similar kind of iterative process.
Oh yeah. Yep. You got to like put in the work over and over.
Yeah. With mixed results sometimes, and half the time it's like, I don't know, for you, I mean, it seems like you write a lot of music. Is that accurate just in general?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say so.
And then how much of what you write do you end up using overall, do you think?
Well, yeah, I know a lot of people say that they write like 40 songs and use 2 of them. But I've learned since having a kid, I've learned to be like overly efficient with time.
Right.
So if I sit down to write music, it's going to be music that I play in my sets and probably release eventually.
How do you, is basically that efficiency, is that just being quicker to know when an idea isn't going somewhere?
Yeah, well, it is, but it's also learning to not let the idea go to that place. Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. I guess I've been forced to just get into the flow right away when I sit down to work on stuff. And if something's not going right, if I'm hitting a wall, this happens mostly on the airplane because I try to write music every time I'm on the plane.
Okay.
And I don't know, half the time when I do that, I'll hit a wall and I'll be like, all right, I'm going to just open up Vital or like some synth that I don't use that much and just mess around with that. And I always think if I just sit there and like mess around with some sound design or, make some like hi-hat loops, I'll do that. I'll sit there and make my own hi-hat loops at different tempos and set them aside for like something else.
Sure.
Try and always like be productive in some way.
That's smart, man. Yeah, I think that's a really good answer to my question earlier too about efficiency, is that it's not like you can it's not like you can flip a switch and suddenly know how to work more efficiently, but you can absolutely set yourself up to be effective whenever you do get that inspiration.
Oh yeah, for sure. And caffeine helps.
Yeah.
I will say that.
It can. I don't know, man. I was like, before we started this podcast, I was a little too jacked up. I was like, man, I overdid it today. I don't know how this is going to go.
Oh, yeah. That's why I poured myself a beer.
Ooh, bring yourself back down. I like it.
Yep. Loosen up a little bit.
That's nice. I got the tea going on here, which is, we'll see if that was a good idea or not.
At least it's just tea.
Yeah.
It's not coffee.
No, yeah, no. That would have been a disaster.
I've been drinking. I drink mate all the time.
Oh man, you're one of those. The people I know who drink mate are religious about it.
Oh, it's so good.
Is it just like a different kind of buzz than caffeine? Than like caffeine from coffee?
Yeah, for sure. Well, it has other stimulants in it. I don't know what the stimulants are, but they're in addition to caffeine.
How is it different? I don't think I've ever had it. Is it just is it a cleaner source of energy?
I think it is. Yeah. I make it in a French press. And if I know that I'm working on music, like today, for instance, I started a collab with I probably shouldn't say it like out loud to everybody, but I started a collab that I'm really excited about. I woke up and I was like, all right, I gotta make the jet fuel for today. Made it really strong. I just use loose leaf mate, make it in a French press. And then I have a milk frother, throw some oat milk in there, throw some honey in it, froth it up, make some foam. You got a mate latte. It's good. It gets you going too. And you don't crash, which is nice.
Yeah, I get the crash real bad. I was like, this is a total tangent, but like I didn't even really drink caffeine at all until my 30s. So then like when I started, it hit me like a ton of bricks. Like even, just a couple sips of whatever, I'd be going crazy. At this point, I've equalized a little bit. It still has a pretty strong effect on me. I can crash pretty bad if I'm not careful.
Oh yeah. Coffee's rough too with crashing.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. I love the taste of it at this point, so I still drink it, but man, some days it's a mistake.
Oh, yeah. I feel like every time I drink it, it's a mistake, but it just tastes so good.
Yeah. I'm right there with you, man.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to make sure we got back to this before I started wrapping it up. What we were talking about at the start of this, when I was talking about kind of how the commercialization of electronic music, and you were saying you had been thinking about some of these things a lot, and I feel like we kind of got sidetracked a little bit. But I wanted to get back to it just to ask you kind of your experience of watching that happen to the electronic music scene, how you felt about it, what your experience was. Do you think, as an artist going through it, trying to build your career in the midst of it, what was that like for you? And how do you think about it now?
Oh, man. Yeah. Building my career in the midst of it was interesting. I still feel like I'm glad that I started when I did, because man, starting from scratch right now that just seems
a lot.
Whew, yeah, I can't even imagine. I mean, I know people that are doing that too, and they're doing a good job of it. But
yeah, for sure. I think it's also hard for us, having started when we did, to imagine doing it at any other time. But I also try to tell myself that, like, well, if I was 18 right now and just starting, the way I'd look at the world would be so different. So many things that now to me seem weird would just make total sense if that was just how my world was at that time,
That's true. Yeah.
But I'm still the same as you. I'm grateful that I started when I did.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And it's cool having it's cool that we got to go through like the early days of all this, kind of going from the underground to the mainstream.
Oh,
like we watched it go from underground to mainstream in front of our very eyes.
It's true, man. Yeah. Being there every step of the way, it's wild. Like, and I, there's still plenty of cool underground scenes and all that. But, now that we're at the huge festival stage of it, it's like, that's never going back in the bottle,
Oh, no way. And man, the one thing that I get nostalgic about is like rave culture.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like the one thing that's getting lost is rave culture, which is what got me into all this in the first place.
Yeah, wait, talk about that a little bit. Like what kind of rave culture? What did you experience early on?
I mean, basically that's what got me into DJing, is starting to go to raves, more or less. I mean,
in Sacramento?
No, in Colorado. It was right after I moved to Colorado, and I started going to, I mean, I'm hesitant to even call them raves, but that's basically what they were.
Yeah. Larger than a house party, but not quite a rave.
Yeah, like warehouse parties. It was right when glitch hop was starting to take hold in Colorado. And, it was when I would go see, to put it into perspective, I was seeing Bass Nectar in a 200 person room.
Yep.
So it was like that kind of vibe in that time period. And it was just a different scene. It just felt underground. Everybody was like, I don't know. If you saw anyone you saw there at the party, you had like something in common with. The fact that they were there.
Right. Because you really had to seek it out at that point.
Yeah, exactly. And it kind of makes me sad that everyone that's getting into everything now doesn't really get to experience that. But I'm sure that they experience that in their own way that I don't understand, because I'm where I am and they're where they are.
Yeah, so. Absolutely, man. I try not to judge the two experiences because they're so different. And I feel the same way as you, because it's weird to me to think about just discovering electronic music now. And then, if I were to put myself in those shoes, it's like, what then? Like what you want to do is immediately like go to the biggest festival and have this like crazy over the top experience. Where for me, it was like, no, I want to go to like the weirdest basement,
Yeah. It's crazy though. It's been hitting me because I've been playing a bunch of these Subtronics shows
right
recently. And, because we share the same management and we've just been friends for a long time. And it's blowing my mind seeing where this is all going
He's having
in a good way.
Yeah.
But I'm like, man, there's this dude's like showing up, and they can't have enough nights for all the kids to be able to go to these shows because everyone's buying the tickets way too fast. And like, it's crazy. It's like mind blowing to watch.
It's pretty cool, man. And I mean, Subtronics is a great example of someone who I feel like really has not compromised much to get to where he is.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is just super, if we're talking about kind of the commercialization and the growth of everything, like that to me is like a great example of like, no, you can do the weird thing. You can do whatever you think sounds cool. And if you're smart about it, you can still kind of go as far as you want.
For sure. I mean, it's just blazing your own trail of pop culture, basically.
Ooh, I like the way you put that. That's exactly right, man, because it is... You're right. There, you have to kind of embrace a pop culture edge to a certain extent, but it doesn't have to be anyone else's version of it.
Yeah. I mean, watching him, like, he's just like, he's the same way that, I mean, to me at least, he's the same way that he was like 5 years ago, but whatever he's doing, everyone wants a piece of that.
Right.
So that's why everyone is coming to these shows and everyone's just so like into it. And it's like, yeah, it's very inspiring for me. Like it's actually lit even more of a fire under my ass to like write more music. Cause I'll watch his sets and I'll be like, oh man, all right. I gotta like, that was cool. I should try that. I should try that sound in one of my songs, or like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's cool. It's good to be around, and it's good to see, like, I like seeing good people do really well.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. No, there's no better feeling, man. And especially to be able to feel like, yeah, you're doing it with your friends, you know? Like a thing I talk about on the show all the time is that I think we're all trying to get back to that original feeling of just like fucking around with your friends and it being the most fun thing ever. And then, at this point in our adult lives, it's always just trying to get back to as close to that feeling as we can without breaking everything, right?
Yep, for sure. I've actually had this feeling recently of being like, wow, my job is basically to fuck around with my friends. That's my career now, which is, it's awesome, but it's like kind of crazy to think about.
It's completely insane. I mean, it makes me feel so lucky to be doing it on any level. But well, and I don't know, man. I mean, we've been talking about a lot of different great artists in this conversation, but I mean, I want to make sure we give you your flowers too. Like, I feel like you're having a moment of sorts at this point too. I mean, playing big shows, you're headlining Red Rocks at a certain point is like, that's a pretty big one. That's a pretty big one there.
Yeah. It's that was definitely, well, it hasn't happened yet, but it was a milestone to get that, get that email.
Yeah, it must have felt crazy, man.
Yeah. Well, mainly because I came up in Colorado and played all those shows for 10 people.
Right.
It seems I definitely have the imposter syndrome thing a little bit.
Yeah.
That I need to get over, I guess.
You're not alone there, man. So many people have that. I think it's healthier if you have to have something. I think it's healthier to have that than to be like, yeah, I'm the best,
Right. Yeah. It's better to be on that end of the spectrum of that.
I think so.
Yeah, it's weird though. Like, as far as, I don't know, things going well in my music career and all that, I think it's felt like I feel like I've never had one of these. Like, I've never had a big all of a sudden
blast
spike
off. Yeah.
Yeah. Like it's been this constant, like, I guess we talked earlier when it was like this. And
peaks
then
and valleys. Yeah.
It feels like it's been steadily increasing, which is kind of the only way I would want it.
Yep. 100%. And it took you this long to get to that point. I mean, to me, that's long-term success, man. I don't think I don't think anyone really wants the hyper blast off thing for their career. If you really break it down, I think that's such a dangerous thing to have happen.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, the main part of that is I was talking to someone about this recently, but we were talking about how the most important thing to all of us, whether we want to admit it or not, is having the respect of our peers.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. So when you get those, like, all of a sudden come out of nowhere and you're just headlining everything on top of everyone, that's the one thing that none of those people really have that, like, respect among the scene.
Yeah, definitely. There's some arched eyebrows a lot of times in scenarios like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I never resent anyone for that, but it is, I mean, there's plenty of people who you see go up real fast who end up going down just as quickly,
Yeah.
I think if you are that person and that happens to you, that's great. It's a good kind of problem to have, but man, it can be a problem.
Oh, yeah. For sure. Yeah. I mean, and if you are that person, all you can do is just take full advantage of it while it's happening.
Yeah, man.
And, like,
do
be
the
smart
most.
about
And
it.
I don't know. That's almost where you want to have, it's weird to say this, but I feel like that's almost where you want to keep that insecurity a little bit and not get too full of yourself. Because if you can maintain a level head throughout all of that, then I feel like you're in a great position. But I think it's so hard to maintain perspective at that point.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, everyone I know, though, is, when I think about, like, all my friends that I'm surrounded by all the time in the music world, everybody's like really chill. It's weird.
Mostly people are great, man.
Yeah. Like, I wonder if this is one of the only professions where we can say that.
The thing is, though, if we're thinking about it, I mean, there's plenty of maniacs in our industry. Like, there's plenty of completely just ridiculous people, but I feel like it's very easy to avoid them, or they're kind of harmless. You know what I mean?
For sure. Yeah. Maybe that's what it is. It's easy to avoid them if you know.
Yeah. And I feel like everybody knows, because it is very high schoolish. Like, once you get up to a certain point, it's really not that big a world,
Right. Yeah. Which is kind of cool, because well, man. All right. I was going to say nobody's pulling any funny business, but I guess there is some funny business. There has been some funny business going on.
Well, man, I don't want to take up your whole day, because I'm sure you got shit to do. But before we do wrap it up, is there anything we haven't talked about? Anything else that's on your mind? Anything you want to let people know? Anything we haven't covered?
Man, I don't know. We talked about a lot.
We did. I mean, dude, we could keep going. I like talking to you, man. I feel like we could keep going kind of indefinitely.
Yeah, I know, dude. Yeah, it's fun. That I've actually thought about wanting to do my own podcast because of this.
Oh, dude, it's a lot of work, but it's super fun, man. And I think you'd be good at it. Yeah,
it would, man. I've actually recorded a couple episodes with friends that I just haven't released.
Right.
And it basically just turned into, like, chilling with my friends and recording it.
It's the best, man. It's the best.
Yeah.
And especially for, like, what we do, everybody's busy and running around, and it's hard to, like, catch up with people. For me, I mean, the secret of this podcast and the reason I've been doing it as long as I have is I just get to force people to hang out with me, Oh, yeah. All these people who ordinarily I'd feel bad just, like, calling them on the phone and wanting to talk for an hour. But in this, people just have to do it. It's great.
Yeah. The reason I like it is because I'm not that good at being on the internet all the time and, like,
I'm the same.
Showing people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the perfect way for me to, like, get all my thoughts out and actually have people hear who I really am and all that.
But dude, I would love it if you start a podcast. You should absolutely do that.
Yeah, maybe I will. Maybe this is the motivation.
With all your free time.
Oh, yeah. All right, maybe not.
No,
Maybe I'll wait a little bit.
don't let that stop you, man. I mean, especially if you're at home a lot more with a kid, maybe that's a good way to stay connected to people. Who knows?
Yeah, that's true.
What about music, man? Anything else? I mean, you said you're writing a lot of music, trying to put albums together. Are you just an album artist at this point? Like, I know you drop singles here and there, but is the album the focus in general?
Yeah, it is, but it's not the only focus. Like this year, I'm not going to put an album out this year. I'm putting a couple EPs out and then some singles because I never do that. I always just do the album thing.
Right.
I'll do an album. I'll release an album next year, like probably in the fall. So that's why I was kind of stoked to get like a head start and I don't know, hopefully start writing the album like next month.
Nice, man. Yeah, that's great. Give yourself some lead time.
Yeah, like have a full year, spend a full year writing it. Probably still work on other stuff to like play during shows, but really focus a whole year onto like just that body of work.
It's probably a good time to do it if you're about to have another kid. I would imagine that slows down the touring a little bit too.
Yeah, for sure. And like I'll still be doing shows, but yeah, like festival season.
You've been on the road since forever too, man. Is it still fun to go out there?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I love it. I mean, it's gotten even more fun now that I have been skating all the time.
Oh yeah.
So I'll bring my board and like hit parks wherever I am. The exercise and just being able to skate makes touring. Honestly, aside from that hour of actually playing the show, I really just look forward to if there's a good skate park
right
wherever I'm going.
That's the best, man. And that's so fun too, because I don't know. It's so fun to be, because of course we're excited to go to a city and play a show, but that's tied up in this whole thing of our career. But having a separate thing to be stoked on, again, to me, that's just getting back to the kid in you who's just excited about a simple thing and following a passion for no other reason. I think there's so much value in that. Oh,
for sure. And if it's something you're not that good at, that you're working, making progress at.
Right.
Because the show, touring can get, when you're doing like 4 or 5 shows a week, everything aside from the hour that you're playing the show gets extremely monotonous, where you're like, all right, time to go to Chipotle again. Time to take a shower in this gross, venue shower.
Yeah, always gross. Why is it always gross?
I don't know. It's not that hard to keep a shower clean.
Right. Yeah, I completely agree. I think there's such value in feeling like you actually saw the city a little bit too. Because so much of it, you can on paper go to a million different cities, but unless you actually get out there and feel like you did something in the city and got a little character, it's like it could be anywhere. It doesn't really feel that unique or exciting.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Up until I was skating all the time, it was like Groundhog Day.
Yeah, 100%, man. Like the show itself is amazing, but the rest of it is just kind of waiting for the show.
Yeah, for sure. Well, the other part that I love about it is meeting people, like, meeting people at skate parks, but just, it's a different kind of meeting people than like meeting people at the show. Showing up at the skate park and like starting to like shoot the shit with everybody. Nobody knows about the music thing or anything like that. And it's kind of like living a different, I don't know, it's like living a normal life.
Right. Yeah.
Being a dude going to a skate park.
Being a human being. Yeah.
Yeah. Which I think a lot of people that get deep into music and touring and all that, like lose, I don't know, like a lot of my friends don't really get to experience that. Like
100%.
Showing up somewhere and
yeah. Or even, sometimes I talk to people, not like people on this podcast, but just music industry people in general. And it feels so flat, like so one-dimensional, where it's like, that's the only thing they can talk about. And, I get it. I've been there myself, but to me, it's like, that's not a life, man. Like, I'd rather talk to you about anything else.
Yeah.
It's like what you were saying in terms of like listening to like not listening to the shit that you make, you know, the same genre or the same sound. It's like we all got to take a break. We all got to deepen our experience a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. I can tell you after, but it's a really funny theory that Jansen had on something that he told me a long time ago about. So he was basically like listening to your own music and the kind of music that you make. It's like inbreeding, basically.
Right. Dude, it is. That's absolutely inbreeding. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can tell when people are doing that, I feel like.
Yeah, for sure. And you end up with this like three-legged, just.
I completely agree, man. And I know exactly what you and what he means by that. For any of us, man. I mean, I'm not going to take us down this road because this is a whole nother podcast, but like we all get trapped in our bubbles, whether it's the social media bubble, whether it's the dubstep bubble, whether, there's a million different, like, I don't know, we're all getting in smaller and smaller bubbles these days. And it's absolutely happening to music producers too.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I don't really have like a thought about that, but I do see it happening more and more.
Yeah, any way that you can branch out is like very important for your sanity.
Yeah, sanity. I think you'll make better music. I think, for anything, I think you'll just be a better person the more you can branch outside of whatever's comfortable. It's like what you said earlier, man. I liked when you said you just like to find things you suck at and get better at those things. That's like, I don't know, man. I think that's what it's all about. This has been great, man. I really enjoyed this. And well, come back anytime, man. And I hope you do start your own podcast.
Hopefully next time I talk to you, I will get that going.
Absolutely, man. Well, yeah, I'll let you get out of here. But yeah, thank you for doing this, man. This was super fun.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, let me know. If you want to do this again, whenever. I mean, I'm sure it would be a little while.
Oh, dude. Yeah, anytime. And if you've got something going on, anything you want to talk about, just let me know too. Have a great rest of your night, man. And good luck with the baby and all of that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'll keep you posted on all of that.
Keep me posted on the baby, man. Yeah. All right, dude. Take care, man. It's great talking to you.
Yeah, you too.
All right, man.
Talk to you soon.
You too. Peace.